Call the meeting to order. I want to welcome everybody here. Councillor Fehr, I'll ask you to bring the opening, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Every Monday morning I open my computer and I get something called a Monday Morning Motivator, and it usually has some thoughts that can serve to help me hone some of my skills. So this one said, "Thou shalt not be average." I'd like to share with a message that I read recently by a man named Roy Williams, who's dubbed the Wizard of Ads. His message challenges us to look and see if we are playing life too safe. First, if you can't tell funny stories about embarrassing mistakes you've made, you're not taking enough chances. Do not let the fear of failure turn you into a narrow guardian of the status quo. Good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. Roy met a woman when he was a very young boy who had the power to change the future, and she taught him how to do it as well. And I'll share that with you. The past is written by the choices of yesterday. The future is written by the choices we make today. The key is to do things that matter. We spent our day yesterday. We invested our time. We did. But did we make a difference? Did we bring joy to anyone? Did we matter? Or did we play it safe because we were worried that we might make a mistake? I'm not suggesting that we try something new all the time, just 5% of the time. The time to try something new is when you feel itchy that there's room for improvement, when you've counted the costs, and when you can't afford to fail. That's when we should take a chance and follow our instinct. Few things turn out as well as we had hoped or as badly as we had feared. We learn a little from small mistakes, and we learn a lot from big ones. We learn nothing at all from mediocrity. Failure is never a waste of time. Mediocrity always is. The fear of failure is what keeps us average. Success is the result of taking chances. Innovation occurs when we take a chance that we might be wrong. Robert Moore, a distinguished service professor of psychology, wrote, "We should always encourage greatness in people. We should always encourage ambition. We believe that nobody wants to be sort of gray normal. Often the definition of normal is average. We seem to live in an age that is under the curse of normalcy, often characterized by the elevation of the mediocre. When you worry about what might happen, you're living in the shattered wreckage of your future." With regards to the woman that was mentioned earlier who taught Roy how to change the future, well, she was the woman that married his father before he was born. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Fehr. We have the agenda in front of us. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please? Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Swagstra. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favour? Carried. We have the minutes from August 18th in front of us. Can I have a motion to approve, please? Councillor Seaman, second by Councillor Fehr. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favour? Carried. No business arising from the minutes. It is 7:35, so we'll move to the public hearing. We'll close the council meeting and open the public hearing in regards to Subdivision 4451 2015 7524. This is a public hearing specifically in regards to the road opening and the creation of Crescentwood Drive on page 4, Council. Mr. Workentine, I'll ask you to introduce this, please.
Mr. Mayor and members of Council, this is subdivision file application 4451-2015-7524. Its purpose is to allow the creation of 14 residential low-density lots and the creation of Crescentwood Drive. The applicant is proposing to develop single-family and two-family dwellings on proposed lots 1 to 6 and single-family dwellings on proposed lots 7 to 14. Letters and recommendations from community planning have been issued. Notices as required under the Planning Act have also been issued. There are no registered objections on file. Based on the review of the application, the recommendation is that Council approve the subdivision file and the road opening file for Crescentwood Drive, subject to the prior execution of a development agreement.
Thank you. We do have the applicant here today. Does the applicant wish to speak?
So nothing to add. Any questions?
Thank you. Is there anything further from anyone wishing to object to this file? Anyone wishing to object? Are there any questions for the applicant? Mr. Vanron, I'll ask you to take the podium. Go ahead, Councillor Penner.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I was wondering if you could tell me what the plans are for drainage in this area.
That would be the engineer's job, our engineer's job, as well as with the city. We've worked together on the drainage plan. For the first phase, it'll just be basic lots, but there are some retention ponds that are going in the future. It's a very extremely large parcel, so there will be some retention ponds in the future.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. I will close the public hearing, open the council meeting. Council, how would you like to proceed? There is a resolution on page 4 if you so choose. Councillor Swagstra.
I'll make the motion that we approve the subdivision and the road opening.
All right, thank you. There is a resolution on page 4, so I would imagine that is the one that you're
That's what the resolution
referring
states.
to. Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Fehr, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to support this file. It's good to see that there's more development happening in the city. This will involve 14 residential low-density lots, the creation of a new road called Crescentwood Drive off of Mackenzie Avenue. This is part of a long-term plan. This is a relatively new neighborhood in our city, and we've certainly seen it grow over the last few years. And I'm happy to see it grow a little bit more, and this would be a welcome addition to our city.
Thank you. Further discussion? Anything further from council? Anything in closing? Council, before I ask the question or call for the question, this is a parcel of land that is new to our city. It's part of the annexation agreement that we had, friendly annexation that we had with the RM of Hanover a year or so back. This is really good to see this beginning the development of that, and we're going to see there is a master plan that we've also seen for this area that will encompass both what's here that we're seeing as well as other additions. It's great to continue to have more people wanting to move to Steinbach and developers continuing to want to make those lots available for people to build. So good news. Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. We have no delegations today. We have no reports and recommendations from the city manager. We'll move to 9A, accounts payable, in the back of the book, please. Can I have a motion to approve the accounts payable? Councillor Funk, second by Councillor Siemens. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. We have 9B, the financial statement ending July 31st. Can I have a motion to approve, please? Councillor Siemens, second by Councillor Funk. Any discussion? No, sir. Call for the question. All those in favor? Thank you. We have building permits for July on page 36. There is a motion on page 36. We already have building permits for August, or August is already complete, so this is a bit of old news, but it is there, and we do need to accept that. Can I have someone move that motion, please? Councillor Penner?
Move to accept?
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Fehr. Any discussion?
No.
Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. 9D, we have business licenses on page 37. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Siemens. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. Any questions of council today? Councillor Siemens.
Through you to administration.
All right.
I've had a couple of questions regarding painting of the lines on our street now that it's fall. And can you give us any information, feedback? Generally, I think it happens once a year, usually earlier in the summer.
That is partially true. There are there is some line painting that does proceed earlier in the year. That work is often coordinated through MIT, Manitoba Infrastructure and Transportation, as well. Earlier this summer, the symbols on various city streets that have the Share the Road program were completed. With the highly active construction season that the city is experiencing, the expectation is that additional line painting, if required, would occur later this fall once those projects near completion.
Answers your question? Yes. Thank you. Any other questions of council? Seeing none, we'll move to 11A, the Seine-Rat River Conservation District minutes on page 38. Can I have a motion to approve those, please? Councillor Fehr, second by Councillor Penner. Any discussion? Scratched your head. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? We have other Seine-Rat River Conservation District minutes. We will just take those as information because that's what we usually do. I'm not sure why we even accepted those others.
You asked.
But I asked. Thank you. Thank you. 11C, we have a letter from Rayfast in regards to Old Tom Road on page 44. Council, some of you have seen some of this before. I guess first of all, I'll start off with a question to administration if I could, and then I'll open it up to other questions. Mr. Workentine, obviously there was a fair amount of rain the day that these pictures were taken, and it does look like significant water. Can you tell us a bit of a history in regards to this area?
I think, Mr. Mayor, that history precedes me. It's been there for some time. It is a creek bed that has been routed next to Old Tom Road for a short span before that creek continues downstream to the northwest and through the golf course. So it has existed for many years. Most of the private lots on Old Tom in that neighborhood of Mr. Fast are low-lying, and they're prone to water accumulation, especially when there are heavy rains like was experienced last weekend. Just a note, having had a look at that neighborhood the morning of, or the morning after on Monday, the accumulated water had all drained away, so that it at least was no longer visible from the road. As far as I understand it, the culverts that have been installed along the driveways in that area have been installed according to city requirements, and the drain, while it was overflowing at this point with the rain that was there over the weekend, like I said, the situation has been existing for many years and predates many of these houses being built, including the property of Mr. Fast.
Thank you. Other questions of council? Councillor Siemens.
Through you to administration. Just for clarity, who is responsible for those drains? Is it the water conservation plays a role, or is it city engineering? If we move the water quicker through that area, we're going to cause issues potentially through the golf course. That could be a concern.
Yes.
But who is ultimately responsible for draining that water through that area?
My understanding is that this is a provincial drain. Having said that, the city is involved in decisions relating to site drainage when it comes to development of property in the area. So probably the best explanation is there is some degree of joint efforts being put forth to drainage in the area, or for significant drains such as this one.
Thank you. Councillor Fehr.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to administration. It says in his letter here that the drain hasn't been cleaned out in the 10 years that he's lived there. First of all, I don't know whether he built the house or whether he bought an existing property, or whether it would have been something that he would have been required to look after when he developed it. But would there be any benefit to having it cleaned out, and whose responsibility would that be?
That question is difficult to answer. I could probably maybe give you a reference point to give you an idea of what has happened. Normal procedure that the city follows is that when there is work to be done to drains such as this one, it's a developer prompt that initiates any improvements or that kind of thing. The best example is upstream of Mr. Fast's property. The nearest development is Habitat Village. That is a housing development that has been developed by G&E Homes over the past 10 years or so. There have been significant drain or creek channel improvements and detention pond improvements that have been installed due to that development. But any other portions of that drain where there has not been any development, and that's downstream along the farmland or in the vicinity of Mr. Fast's property, those areas have not been maintained, and generally there isn't that kind of significant cleanup work being done to drains that are unimproved or undeveloped.
Other questions or further questions?
One further question of administration. For next year, I think it's not a secret that we were planning to hard surface that road there. Is there any merit to us looking at dealing with some of this before we do that, or is there any benefit that could be derived from taking care of the water first?
At this point, I'm not aware that there is a concept plan that exists for this section, which would include overall land uses as well as drainage considerations. So to proceed with any significant initiatives without that initial conceptual planning being done might pose some challenges. From how I understand the project to be being planned at this point, the directive that the city or that administration is working with is that it's an asphalt surfacing only, and drainage would be an additional consideration if that's an issue or an item that council would like to see.
Thank you. Further questions? Councillor Penner.
Yes, through you to administration. In the past, I think what we've done sometimes is if there's issues like this that need some resolution and there's no development in sight that would help to mitigate the costs, that we've sometimes done the work and then we'll charge it against the future development when that occurs. Is that something we could use at this time for a solution?
Well, it's a challenge, as Mr. Fast's property is right at the corner of Old Tom and Lowen Boulevard. As such, there is a small section of his property towards the rear of his property that's low-lying and subject to the flooding that is shown in the pictures that he provided. But the suggested, or what I think Mr. Fast seems to be suggesting, is work being done downstream, and it's not necessarily attributed to his property directly. But I think, as was said earlier, is if there are some immediate issues that solutions are being sought for, there could be significant ramifications for downstream properties that, just by the nature of the way drainage works, could be implicated by any work upstream.
Through you again. So if we fixed, let's say we tried to fix the drainage in this area, it could cause problems downstream, let's say where it flows to the golf course?
It could.
All right. Councillor Funk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is probably more of a comment than it is a question, but to administration. Maybe this is something, it's bigger than just 1 yard and water backed up on 1 yard. Because if we go downstream, of course, we're going to be making problems for someone else. But if we go further downstream in the golf course, there are possibly ponds there now that could be enlarged or deepened to hold more water for that. Also, you don't have to drive too many roads to see that the Manning Canal, which is our major provincial drain, is quite slumped and needs cleaning out too. So I'm wondering if that's something we could work with the Conservation District with and see if we can get that on MIT's radar to get that cleaned out too, because all those things would help move water faster upstream if downstream it can flow.
Further comments? Councillor Swagstra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The question I would have, there's been a bit of a discussion about who has jurisdiction over this, and as you noted, it's a little fuzzy because it's officially provincial, but the city has involvement. So my question just straight up is, if the city were to go in and make changes, do you believe, based on the information that you have, that we would have the ability to do so, or the authority to do so?
I would have to confirm the jurisdiction of that before any work would proceed, but that is something that I could find out.
All right. We've had a few good questions here. Can I make a suggestion, and then you can tell me if this generally reflects your views? We know that Old Town Road is going to be worked on this next year, or at least it's in the preliminary budget that it'll be hard surfaced, and there'll be some work being done in that area. Would it be appropriate for us to first of all ask administration to find out that jurisdiction of whether this provincial drain is under our jurisdiction or others? Whether there's some small mitigation that can take place that is not costly or not very costly, that can maybe be included in that possible program next year, or any other suggestions that administration might have after they look at this and say this could be a possible solution. I know it's a bit nebulous because we don't have complete answers, but are you comfortable giving that direction to administration, or do you want to give them further direction? Councillor Penner.
Yes, I can't help but have sympathy for Mr. Fast. I know some of this is not of his own making. Some of it is things that he bought with the property. I understand that part too, but the fact remains that every time there's a heavy rain, there's a huge problem there. And I did drive by there the day, I think on the Sunday, and it was terrible. It was really terrible. So if there's something we can do to mitigate it until such time as there is development that will require proper drainage, that would be good. As well, I agree with Councillor Funk. I think it's a larger problem. I think our city needs to refocus again on drainage and make sure that we have adequate drainage through the city so that people don't run and our roads don't run into issues. So I concur. I think that was a very good suggestion.
Councillor Penner, just so you, I think you might even know this, but our Strategic Priority Committee meeting at the end of September will be looking specifically at drainage. So that's
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think that the bigger problem here is that unless there's going to be some sort of retention before the water gets to the Fast property, that problem will not go away. And until we can find a place that they can build a retention pond and work with the water stewards, because that's really they have to take some responsibility here, and that may be something that we have to look at, and I'm going to try to bring that up with them as well when we have our next meeting. So
further discussion. All right, so we'll give administration some leeway in looking into this and seeing what jurisdiction we have. First of all, we're comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Second of all, we're going to ask administration to see if there's some small mitigation that can take place that can alleviate some of that pressure right now, and then we'll have further discussions on what a master plan might look like to actually make it more permanent. Are we comfortable with that? Okay, through general consensus? Okay, thanks. All right, there's no other business on the agenda. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please? Councillor Funk, second by Councillor Penner. All those in favor?